I love what you are doing. I love how you do it.
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law most times would feed me.
Oh,
Yes.
that's beautiful.
I am married to a Bamileke man, so
Yeah.
the feeding comes with every delivery.
Yeah. Hi, welcome to another episode of Vitalings. Like you all know, if you've been following us for some time now, Vitalings is a podcast on maternal and reproductive health, everything pregnancy and parenting. On today's episode, we plunge you into the lives of two working moms to talk about how they are coping with exclusive breastfeeding. I mean, how is breastfeeding for working moms? We're going to find out that on this episode and more. You don't want to go anywhere. Welcome back. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, today we are looking at breastfeeding for working moms. How are they coping after being at home for 3 months, taking a maternity leave of 3 months, and you have to return to work, and you know that your child needs to continue breastfeeding with all the nutrients that comes with breastfeeding. How are these mothers ensuring that they remain effective at work and equally raise healthy children? So with me is Joyce, a journalist, and equally Emeline, a fellow journalist. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation to share your experience on Vital Talks.
Thank you for inviting me.
That's a chorus. I like that. So straight away, I mean, both of you are working moms. Emeline has breastfed her baby, and Joyce, you're still breastfeeding your baby.
Yes.
And you guys made me to understand that you actually did exclusive breastfeeding. How was it for you doing exclusive breastfeeding as a working mom?
Okay, so maybe I should state that I have 3 jobs in between. Mm-hmm. So this means that I'm a freelancer and I'm also a businesswoman.
Okay.
And I also do a little bit of everything on the side. Mm-hmm. So first I had to quit my job as a freelancer just when I was in the limelight of freelancing.
Yes.
And this means I left pending projects for sites like DW because I was in the middle of birthing, breastfeeding, and I didn't make money for a whole long period of time. But with business, I couldn't let my investment just sink like that.
Of course.
So I had to go back to business, and this meant that I had to carry my baby along. And I have to tell you that it wasn't so conducive moving with breast pumps and going to a business place where I didn't have a really conducive room to pump or breastfeed my child. So I had to use like a nursing cover to constantly cover all of my breast when I wanted to breastfeed, because I'm not quite comfortable with people seeing like part of my anatomy. So that was very difficult for me.
Yes.
And it also was psychologically difficult for me to let freelance go, because it was so tempting that only when I was on my maternity leave that I was getting a lot of calls for pitches, and editors were all over my inbox.
I can imagine.
Requesting for stories. So that was how difficult it was. I can say it was easy because I had the liberty to quit one thing
and focus on another.
And focus on another. But it was also very demanding because either ways, I needed, and even when I attempted going back to freelance, this required me traveling with my baby. So how do I express, how do I leave my baby to go into hinterlands, like meeting the Baka pygmies and, in that kind of area where there are no refrigerators? How do I sanitize the breast pumps?
We were going to come to that. Joyce, maybe tell us, why did you choose exclusive breastfeeding? Seeing that you're working, you are a full-time journalist.
I was so plunged in her story that I forgot mine.
Why did you choose exclusive breastfeeding?
I chose to exclusively breastfeed my baby because with my first, he took ill constantly. I started formula when he was barely 2 months.
Oh, so you didn't exclusively breastfeed
the first one? No. I started with formula when he was barely 2 months old, and then he took ill from time to time. And when I went to the hospital with him, the doctor kept saying, or the pediatrician at the time kept saying that is because I gave him formula before the time. I don't know when the due time is, maybe 6 months as they usually say.
Yes, 6 months.
But with this one, I said, let me try. I wanted to try breastfeeding exclusively and see where it's going to get me. And so far, so good.
So far, so good.
He's 4 months old today.
Okay. Yeah.
He's strong.
So how did you manage it? Being at home, because normally when you give birth according to the law, you have to, you're entitled to a 3 months maternity leave.
That's according to the law.
Paid leave, of course. So we're assuming that you had that. So let's say, okay, maybe it wasn't your story.
I had 1 month and a half.
1 month and a half, because you needed to jump back to work to make money.
The private sector is not
to
a
take
bed
care
of
of
roses.
this little human being that's now your responsibility. So how was the transition for you? What did you do to prepare yourself to ensure that your child continues having breast milk?
Okay, I had a talk with his pediatrician, who told me that my breast milk production was consistent enough.
Okay.
And I could breastfeed my baby, be it at work or in the house.
Yeah.
So what she advised me to do was to get a breast pump, an electric breast pump, which will help me express some milk before I go to work in the morning.
Okay.
And then maybe while I'm at work too, if the breast gets full while I'm eating or working. So before getting back to work, when he was 1 month old, I introduced the feeding bottle. So I started expressing while I was at home. And then in the afternoons, somebody else will feed him, because normally when I take him and then he smells mommy and smells milk, he will refuse to take from the bottle.
He just wants to serve directly.
I started expressing when he was 1 month old and giving my mother-in-law, his nanny, to feed him.
Yeah.
And then it made him used to the feeding bottle. So when I had to return to work, I also had to get used to the discomfort that comes along with the breast pump. Okay. It's not really comfortable. Yeah. So 1 month later, when I went back to work, it was easy because he was already used to taking the feeding bottles in the afternoon. So when I went back to work in the morning, since I have breastfeeding hours, I take them in the morning, 2 hours in the morning before getting to work. I breastfeed him. I express in the morning. I allow it at home. I freeze part of it.
Okay. It's important to mention that, because a mother will be wondering, how do you preserve that breast milk that you're expressing?
By freezing.
I was about to jump in with that question. So you need to freeze.
Freezing. I don't know how hygienic that is, but the pediatrician told me that it was going to work magic for my baby. And if you see him, I swear you will think that he eats corn fufu every day.
Oh, which is just breast milk.
Yes, it's
of course,
just breast
that
milk.
is why the WHO and UNICEF are emphasizing that mothers must breastfeed their babies
until 6 months,
at least for the first 6 months of their lives. If you want to continue, maybe introducing complementary feeding later on, but you must continue breastfeeding the child till 2 years of age. So we cannot overemphasize the importance and the nutrients that comes with breast milk. Emeline, you travel to places like the Baka Pygmies in the forest and, some really interior places. How were you managing it with breastfeeding your child?
There was no way I could use breast pumps there, because that would just mean that my baby would be infected in one way or the other. Nowhere to sterilize, nowhere to boil them, and where do I even place them? So I just had to deal with breastfeeding directly.
And carry him along in all of these places?
Yes. I travel with my job description, where I currently work as a communications consultant. I travel a lot.
Yeah.
You see me a lot of times in agencies with buckets, pots. I travel along my kitchen, my bedroom, my baby.
Oh my God.
I take along the nanny.
Yeah.
That's just how I manage the whole situation, because I've accepted my faith. Even though some days I see this career woman, like, don't detire me. Like, it really just gets to me some days. But I've accepted my faith, because how do I do it?
This is really something, demanding and challenging. Did you at some point feel like you should quit your job or you should stop breastfeeding your child?
Absolutely. My husband talked me out of quitting my jobs. He did, because he felt horrible that it was because of our baby that I was going to give up on so much that I could give out.
Yeah.
So, but I was fine with it. I had made peace with it, and I said, this is the price I have to pay for this child that is more important than me.
Yeah.
And I was ready to, but he talked me out of it. And so I had to choose different. I've taken on different jobs since I've had a baby.
Okay.
I've taken on jobs that maybe I would not have taken on before. I've had to drop a lot of things. I've had to consider my baby in a lot of circumstances just so that I could, put her ahead and myself after. It's just now that I'm beginning to pick up slowly and thinking of myself first. Yes, but quitting my job was not that was in January. I didn't think twice about it. That was, and I was very fine with it.
Actually, motherhood is a season in every woman's life. That season battles with your career. So you have you are faced with that choice. Some women don't actually have the luxury of the choice. Maybe like Joyce, you couldn't choose between your job and your baby.
No, I couldn't.
Yeah.
My job actually permits me to take care of my baby, even though my husband is there, but I cannot leave the responsibility to him 100%.
Yeah.
So I need to go out every day in order to bring back something to the table.
So what are the kind of supports that you received from work or from home that made breastfeeding easier for you? Because I remember during the World Breastfeeding Day, one of the things UNICEF and the WHO were jointly insisting on is for workplace support, to increase the rate of or the prevalence of breastfeeding globally. Women need that support. What are the kind of supports that you got?
At the office, I must say I got the support. I got breastfeeding hours, as I earlier mentioned. I could take
Strictly
time.
respected.
Yes.
Yeah.
I could take time either in the mornings or in the afternoons to breastfeed my baby or express milk. I had the luxury of an office to express milk in the afternoons when I couldn't go back home early.
Okay.
My director's freezer would permit me freeze the milk in the afternoons before I take it back home and make sure that I take it before it defrosts and keep it in the freezer at home. And in the house, it was a different ballgame. It was beautiful at home because my mother-in-law, my mother, my husband, they were all so supportive. Everybody was, you are beautiful, you are strong, I love what you are doing. I love how you do it.
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law most times would feed me.
Oh,
Yes.
that's beautiful.
I am married to a Bamileke man, so
Yeah.
the feeding comes with every delivery.
Yeah.
So she would give me nkui, she would give me achu, she would give me fufu corn and jama to make the breast milk more consistent.
Yeah.
And she would literally feed me as soon as it is off the fire. And also, my mother, I must say, I'm a lazy person. So they'll do all the work at home for me because they say a breastfeeding mother should not do anything.
You should just relax.
A breastfeeding mother should
nurse.
relax. Yes, we'll take care of you. And yes, that was that. My mother, my mother-in-law, my husband, they were God sent, or they are still God sent at this moment.
I mean, that's so beautiful for you. It's a beautiful story. Not every woman has the luxury of that support. Emeline, what are some of the adjustments you made to accommodate this exclusive breastfeeding? It is true that you mentioned having a nanny, taking your nanny everywhere. Did you have a particular meal that you were taking to ensure that you have consistent production of breast milk?
Strangely not. I didn't even feed as much as a breastfeeding mother should have fed because I'm not really interested in food that way.
Yeah.
But just like Joyce, I am blessed with this huge supply of breast milk. So whatever I did, even I could just drink water, and I was on a water therapy. I could just drink water and my supply would just be there, very enough. And, the quality was good because the baby looked like somebody who was being breastfed by one really bulky looking person. But so that was one adjustment. One adjustment I had to do was I had to get a new fridge.
Okay.
So I could have something that could accommodate the baby's
the breast milk.
The breast milk, and I became too much of a maniac around the house when it came to hygiene.
Yeah.
I kept I would be everywhere with Lysol, spraying, disinfecting, cleaning.
Making sure everybody's clean.
I was too dramatic about the hygienic conditions in the house.
But that's not being dramatic. You're just doing what you're supposed to do.
Oh, when you have a second baby, it's no longer that way.
The same. Get to that. Okay.
So that was one other adjustment that I had to do. Also with the breastfeeding, my wardrobe changed a whole lot.
Of course.
I struggled a lot with what I wore because my baby, like hers, wouldn't take
the bottle.
So I constantly had to feed her for the most part. In fact, for 89% of the 80 to 90% of the time, I breastfed her directly. Yeah, so my wardrobe suffered a lot. I had to buy clothes constantly.
You have to make sure that what you have either has a button, a zip, something that you can easily lift up, and stuff like that.
Yes, and I spent a lot on how do you call it again? Nursing pads.
Yes, so that you don't leak.
Yeah, I had a lot. I was buying nursing pads as much as I was buying diapers.
Oh.
That's how much the supply was, and I was constantly engorged. So the sleep, I kept using the pillow all through. There were so many adjustments, and I also had to be particular about what I ate.
Of course,
I was so picky. I've not had honey up to this date. Yeah, because
how much it can affect your baby.
Yes, so I would research about what to eat, what not to eat. So when I say I was dramatic, it's because everybody was like, you're doing too much. And when I went for weekends to my mom's place, I went along with bowls to wash the bottles, and she would be like, "Do you mean I don't have
bowls in my house?"
So I was a bit extra. The adjustments were so many, so many for me.
I remember traveling to my in-laws' place in December when my son was about 10 months for Christmas holiday. And I packed a whole valise of pots and plates. And when I got there, they were like, "Were you going to a farm? Were you going to?"
That's what happens when you're a first-time mom. You're a maniac.
And my mother-in-law was like, "I'm just laughing at you. I'm waiting for your second child if you're going to be traveling like this." I mean, I would travel with whole heavy loaded valise. Pots are in there, all kinds of bottles to change, all kinds of beef spoons, all kinds of them. So I think that it's just a subconscious thing in first-time moms.
Yes.
I don't know if other second-time or third-time moms keep doing that.
I can tell you no from experience.
For your second child, I mean, so
I can tell you
relax on a lot of things.
I relax on a lot of things. I wash the bottles in the evening when I return. Meanwhile, with my first, immediately I finish using the bottle, I would use the sterilizer. I put them in the sterilizer. I put the bottles in the sterilizer, and then nobody has to touch the bottles. I was the only one permitted to touch his bottles. But now, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter.
Yes, Emeline, you have to add
feel
something.
like if I have a second, third, and fourth, I'm not saying I'm going to. I feel like I'll still redo it.
Yeah.
Because with my baby, my daughter, she's not been sick. The highest she's suffered from is a cold.
Same with mine.
She's been so healthy, right? She's been so healthy all along, and I feel like that's my greatest reward. Having that healthy baby
right
having
there.
people simplify that I'm the mother to that baby is my reward.
But with my first, I was a maniac, but he was still sick.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Okay.
But with the
so maybe
second,
it's different
he's fine.
for every child. It could be different.
And even
It's
a cold,
up-
he's not had till today. He's 4 months old, and he's not
had any cold. I mean, so would you say that exclusively breastfeeding sometimes it's a disadvantage to working moms, to some working moms, or is it an advantage to them?
Well, it depends on every individual. It depends on you, what you want to do, what you think is good for you, what you think is good for your baby. But I personally, from experience of breastfeeding and then with the other one not breastfeeding, I think that breastfeeding is better.
Yeah.
The connection between the baby and the mother is more intense.
Yeah.
It's something that you cannot express when you breastfeed your baby. The love, the attention is different. Everything is different. Yes.
So you would encourage mothers
I'll
to
choose, if I were to choose, I would choose to
breastfeed.
breastfeed again and again.
Emeline.
Notwithstanding the pain that comes along.
I would go with Joyce because I had difficulties weaning my baby. I had to wean her right up to 1 year, not because I was unable to, but because I felt like stopping the breastfeeding process right now would mean that she would no longer love me so much.
And will no
So
longer be
I
attached.
held on, I held on to that fact that I wanted her to be attached to me because I liked those grimaces that she would make when she finishes suck and she'll be like, oh my God, that really sweetened my heart. I'll do it all over again, and I'll advise anybody, if you are in a position to breastfeed,
please go right in.
And if you can advocate for yourself in your workplace, please go on. If you can buy the fridge that will enable you preserve it.
In that case, what would you say should employers give as support? Because for women to effectively breastfeed, they equally need support from their environment, from family, from colleagues. What should employers do to make breastfeeding easier for moms?
They should provide a safe space for expressing milk. They should provide time
Yeah.
for working breastfeeding mothers. I think that's the hardest thing that a working mother should have to do, breastfeeding. So they should give a working mother time enough to take care of her baby, to breastfeed her baby before coming to work. Because I think that if we go out every morning, it's for those little bundles of joy
course.
that we leave at home. So they should give us enough time to take care of them, to express them, a safe space to express the milk when need be. And then maybe provide materials to support breastfeeding. There are books that you could find maybe in the newsroom, and then you just sit and read them, and they
even
can
provide
help
them
you.
an exclusive space where they can express the milk.
Clean space, yes.
Okay.
I think added to that, what holds breastfeeding moms, what pushes them into the job soon after delivery, I think is the pay.
Okay.
You can provide the time, the material, the fridge, the kitchen space, or the nursing room, and you don't allow them to stay at home for 6 months and having their salaries for those 6 months. They'll come back to work.
Of course.
They will. So if you're able to pay them for those 6 months of maternity leave, they'll be able to sit at home in peace. And
breastfeed.
even if you have to just pay half of the salary.
How can an entrepreneur get 6 months of salary to give you when you're not producing, when you're not working? You don't do anything for him.
It becomes
You're not
challenging.
doing anything for him. You're not of any use.
I feel like where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
Even if it's just 50% of the salary.
3 months, and then
And it encourages better output.
where I work, for instance,
I
we
can
have
promote
half
you.
our salary for the 2 months. No, it's 1 month that you're on leave, and then if you're lucky, you have 2 months.
Yeah,
If you go through a C-section, you have 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or
And then you have half your salary.
I think
Until you
I think
return to
that
work.
we need to have this conversation again with maybe an HR or a stakeholder or an employer, because whether you work with the government or you work with the private sector, the law should be able to apply.
Yeah.
When a woman has a child, she's entitled to a 3 months maternity leave, which you should go. And according to our laws, your employer has the right to pay an insurance fee to the insurance company on your behalf for those 3 months, so that when you return to work, you can have something to fall back on, to like compensation for the months that you were not working.
That's when you're not fired.
That's when you're not fired. You don't have the right to fire them. So that's why I think that we can continue this conversation on another episode with an HR expert and maybe stakeholders who understand what should be done, because our employers equally need to be held responsible. Yeah. If we are going to raise healthy children, have a balanced society, have women work, because we are just women. We didn't choose to be women and to have wombs to bear children. And if we have to continually be productive at work and still raise healthy children, then we need that balance. Employers must do their own bit, and women must equally bring their own half to the table. So I think that we can continue this conversation on another episode, and I'll be so happy to have you girls and maybe some other people join us on a bigger set. So thank you so much, Emeline. Thank you, Joyce, for sharing briefly your experience. I don't know if you have any other thing to chip in before we go.
I'd say fed is best. If it's breastfeeding, go for it. If it's formula, go for it.
Go for it.
As long as
Whatever
your baby
works
is
for
fed,
you.
the baby is good.
Yeah, the baby is good.
As the spirit leads.
As the spirit leads, thank you so much, ladies, for your time. But like it's recommended, this episode we're talking about exclusive breastfeeding. If you have to choose one, choose exclusive breastfeeding. But if you cannot exclusively breastfeed, at least do complementary. Do not deprive that child totally and completely from the magic of breast milk. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Vital Talks. See you on the next.